What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. We are in the garage with the E92 M3 today and we are going to be installing the UCP. This is the ultimate clutch pedal. Now, while the E92 M3 has so many strong points, it definitely has a couple of weak points, one of them being the factory clutch pedal. The UCP was suggested by a bunch of you guys and the ultimate clutch pedal solves a lot of problems in this car. The main problem that this clutch pedal is going to solve is really the way that the factory clutch pedal travels. It doesn't really have so much of a linear feel to it, and it's not the most rigid setup. I've driven quite a few manual E9X M3s, and I can tell you right now that all of the manual M3s feel very, very soft and spongy. It is just the way that the factory clutch pedal is designed, and that is why people upgrade to the UCP. When I pull out the factory clutch pedal, you'll be able to see the differences in the shape as well. With the UCP pedal, it's actually adjustable, so you have 3 different settings, and this will help change the overall stiffness when it comes to the clutch pedal. The last thing that is quite obvious with the UCP pedal is this is made out of aluminum. The factory clutch pedal in this car is actually made out of plastic. So just having a more robust, rigid clutch pedal is going to be better in the long run. It's going to also make sure that everything is just much tighter in there, and of course, stronger. When you are pressing down the clutch in this car, it's very soft in the beginning, stiff in the middle, and then springy in the end. So it's just not really a linear feel all the way through that clutch pedal travel. The UCP is going to help with that tremendously. Now, one thing that I do want to mention is the clutch in this car actually does need to be replaced, and I am doing that within the next couple of weeks here. I already have a new clutch and I have a new flywheel that is going to go into this car. That is also going to make a big difference in my particular situation because this is the original clutch in this car, and this car almost has 100,000 miles on it. You can just tell that this clutch is tired. But the problem that I have in particular with this clutch pedal doesn't really relate to the actual clutch in the car. The clutch in this car, for the most part, is still doing its job. However, the feel of the clutch pedal has always been this way. And as I've said before, I've driven quite a few E9X M3s that were manual, and they all just sort of feel this way. Now, I only have this for the E92 M3 today, but if I like it, I'm probably going to end up ordering it for the 1 Series as well. Being that there are different settings when it comes to the ultimate clutch pedal, we're gonna have to sort of play with a few different variations until we find the right spot. Another thing I do want to note is this is an early model E92 M3. It's very possible that when we are taking out some of the springs behind the clutch pedal, in the later models, 2 springs were used, a larger one and a smaller one. In the earlier models, from what I understand, there's only 1 spring being used, and that is the larger one. I did watch some other reviews online, and some people were saying that the sweet spot is actually removing the larger spring and only using the smaller one. So if I do end up in a situation where I can't find that sweet spot and I only have the larger spring, I may have to order that smaller spring and make a follow-up video. I've never taken the clutch pedal out of this car before, so I don't really know how many springs it actually has, but we're gonna find out. All right, so I wanna show you guys what all was shipped to me. Obviously, the pedal, this thing looks phenomenal. It's very, very robust, sturdy, and feels very durable. It just feels like it's going to last a long time. You'll see right here, these are the adjustment points. We basically have 3 different adjustment points. And I think what I'm gonna do is start off in that middle slot and just go from there. The slot that it's in right now would be the least aggressive, and that's probably more similar to OEM. However, I wanna feel a difference with this, so we're gonna go with the center. And if that's not enough, we're gonna go all the way inwards. I was also sent this clutch stop, so I might end up using this as well. We will see how everything feels without the clutch stop and go from there. There's also a smaller T20 to help you take off one of the panels underneath the footwell, and a replacement clip as well. I don't know if all of the packages get this, but I got this massive UCP sticker. We'll have to find a place in the garage for this. As far as tools, I'm gonna be using the T20. I'm gonna be using a flathead or a little pick tool like this. I have a 4mm Allen, I have a 6mm Allen, socket wrench for the Allens, 10mm wrench and 17mm wrench, and that should be everything we need. If you guys are interested in purchasing the ultimate clutch pedal, I'll have it linked down below for you guys. If you're confused at all about installing it, they make it pretty easy because they supply you with the install instructions. Let's hop in the car and get this thing installed. First step is to remove the 3 T20s underneath the driver's footwell. That should release the entire panel. You can pull it down. And under here, you're gonna have 4 plugs, one for the speaker, one for the light, this larger plastic plug, and you have this Bluetooth module on the far left side. I just decided to pop out the entire module. It's easier than trying to unplug the Bluetooth antenna. Now we can go ahead and pull out the entire plastic cover, set that aside. And now we can start working on getting out the actual clutch pedal. The first step is going to be to remove this small plastic pin at the top of the clutch pedal. You can see here with the clutch pedal actually out, you're gonna wanna use a 1/4 inch extension. And on the female side, you can press in on the plastic pin and it should allow it to snap. And you'll hear an audible click, which will release the plastic pin inside of the housing. Then just flip around the 1/4 inch extension and you should be able to slide out the plastic pin all the way through. The next step is to unattach the lower portion of the lightweight return spring. You're going to want to take a smaller hooked pick tool, grab the lower end of the spring and unhook it from the clutch pedal. Next step is to remove the smaller C-clip that holds in the dowel pin connecting to the clutch return spring. Use your pick tool or a flathead to remove the C-clip, and then you should be able to slide out the dowel pin from left to right. Here's the clutch pedal out of the car, so you can see what this process looks like. It's a little difficult to get the cameras up underneath the footwell area. Next step is to undo the clip that is at the top portion of the clutch pedal. You basically just have to release the outer portion and then push out the clip with your flathead screwdriver. It takes a little bit of force, but you will be able to get it out. Here's another view of where that E-clip is located at the top of the clutch arm with the clutch pedal out of the car. All right, so now we're ready to actually remove the clutch pedal itself. The process in order to do this is to slide the entire clutch pedal itself over to the left off of the pin that connects to the car. While you're sliding the clutch pedal over to the left, you also want to lift it up just a little bit so it can clear the arm that comes out of the master cylinder. Here you're going to see our clutch return spring. Mine just completely fell out, but that's okay. We can always put it right back in. And then above our master cylinder right here, you're going to see the pin that the actual top of the clutch pedal is connected to. You're also going to want to remove that small darker spacer at the end there. All right, so we have the OEM clutch pedal out of the car, obviously, and yes, it is just plastic. It's much lighter, much flimsier. We go over to the UCP, much more sturdy, much more durable, robust, and you can also tell there's a pretty big difference when it comes to the shape of the pedal itself. This one is much longer throughout here, whereas this one has more of a hook. If you lay them on top of each other like this, you can really see how they sort of have this different shape to them, and they just end up in different positions. So it's definitely going to make a big difference even if we don't utilize some of these settings, but we are, like I said, going to be setting it in the middle here. You will find out when doing this that it is extremely cramped, as you can imagine, so trying to film some of this was not the easiest, but hopefully I did a decent job of getting you as much visual representation as possible. The instructions are super clear, so it pretty much lays everything out for you guys. But as far as like difficulty, it's very, very simple. Anyone can do this at home with basic tools. The internals are much better as well on the UCP. You see this is just a little plastic push pin that we popped out. And on the ultimate clutch pedal, it's actually metal. All of the parts of this, in fact, are metal. So everything is just much more durable. And as I suspected, I only have the larger spring in my 2008 E92 M3, which I had a feeling was probably going to be the case. So what I'm going to do is actually order the smaller one as well. I'll put up a picture on the screen of the double spring setup because I would like to try that out as well. A lot of people who reviewed this say eliminating this bigger spring and only going with the smaller one gave it a much better feel. Ultimately, I think that's the way to go, but for now, we will throw it in with this one and see how it feels. All right, let's go ahead and get this one installed. Seems like it should be pretty straightforward, sort of reversing the steps that we just did to pull out the factory one. When the factory clutch arm is removed, look at your lonely brake pedal and notice how lame your car would look if it were an automatic or had silly paddle shifters. Don't worry, your manual BMW is about to look and perform even better than before. Long live the left foot, man. I love it. All right, so now it's time to reinstall the entire clutch pedal. You'll see that I have the spring still attached in this part of the video, but I end up actually taking the entire spring assembly out because I prefer not having it in the car. This is one of the options. You can completely eliminate it, and in my opinion, it just felt better, but we'll get into into that later. The process is basically the exact same as removing it, just in reverse, and this time you're using a series of bolts and nuts rather than plastic pins and clips. See, I have everything attached here. The lightweight spring is on, the master cylinder is connected, and I also have the new E-clip connected to the top of that pin that the clutch pedal connects to. You'll also see that I have the top portion of the return spring cylinder still attached. I ended up taking that out as well. It is recommended that you remove that if you're going to be removing that entire spring. Lastly, I went ahead and installed the clutch stop. This is pretty easy. There's a small little plastic piece. You just remove it, pop it out, and then you just press in your new clutch stop. So I have everything back in the car minus the under tray over here. So I do have some wires hanging out, but I basically went through all of the different variations with this clutch pedal setup. I tried having the spring in at all 3 locations. I also tried removing the spring entirely, and then I also put in the clutch stop. I landed on removing the entire spring altogether and going with the clutch stop, which I think would technically be like the most aggressive setup. The reason that spring is there is to make things a bit softer, a bit more artificial. When you remove that spring, you're basically just feeling all clutch. In my opinion, that feels the best in this car, and the reason that I probably like that is because of the heavier clutch that I have in my 1 Series. When I get into the 1 Series and I drive it, I have a DKM twin disc clutch in that car. It feels really good. It's pretty firm. It's not over the top, but it's pretty firm, and it just feels so much better than this clutch. However, I will say, when you remove the spring and you go with the UCP and then add that clutch stop in there behind the clutch pedal, it feels really, really good. The clutch travel is so much less now. Adding that clutch stop removes quite a bit of pedal travel, and the geometry of the UCP just allows the clutch pedal to sit a little bit further back naturally. So overall, you're reducing the travel by quite a bit, but it feels so much better. You're not stretching your leg out nearly as far to press in the clutch. So I haven't obviously driven the car like this, but I think that this is going to be perfect. Originally, my plan was to go ahead and buy the smaller spring. I don't think I'm going to need it. I don't think I'm going to want it. After reading the instructions, it sounds like some people go this route, some people go with the spring route. It just sort of depends on what you're used to. But being that I'm used to the 1 Series with the heavier clutch, the more aggressive setup, this kind of just makes sense, and I like it more. I remember when I did the clutch stop in my M2, and that also was a pretty dramatic difference. Now, of course, you could just go with a clutch stop in your M3, and it would help a little bit, but this pedal makes a massive difference. It's also much more firm and tight and rigid and stable than the factory clutch pedal. So far, this already feels like an entirely different car. I can tell that it's going to change the entire driving experience for sure, but I feel like when it comes to shifting and going through the gears and driving, it's just going to be so much better overall. I really like it. I'm looking forward to driving it. So I'm going to go ahead and button up the rest of the car, put on the under tray, plug everything in, and let's get out on the road and go for a drive. I will quickly say, this install, if you have to film it, it is not fun. It is not fun. It's such an awkward install because you're like on your back, cramped under there, trying to get lights and tools. It's not like it's technically hard, but it's just very tedious. All right, so since I didn't use the spring or any of that stuff, this is basically everything that I have left over. It's quite a bit of stuff. And they did send me a spare clutch stop, which is pretty cool. And here is our old arm that we're obviously not going to use. Plastic piece. Just put this in the box for safekeeping. I am very late to the game when it comes to this. I had a lot of people who were texting me and commenting, say, dude, you got to get the UCP. Like, it's just the way to go with this car. And let me tell you, man, it makes a massive, massive difference. I feel like I let go of the clutch and it immediately engages, which is nice. I like that. This is definitely not for everyone. Some people will not like this. If you are like a new manual driver, this is probably going to be more difficult for you to drive. For me, it's perfect. Like the moment that you release it, it engages. These factory clutches, they just have so much travel, and that spring really takes a lot of the feeling out from the clutch pedal. It just makes it more numb, and it reduces that linear feel. Without the spring, in my opinion, it is the way to go. I can't tell you what it would be like with the smaller spring, which seems to be what some people go with, because mine obviously didn't have one, but just removing the spring altogether, putting in that clutch stop, and then using the UCP, totally different car. I think the only other two things that I really want to see in this car, the Auto Solution SSK short shifter kit, I think would be a really, really good matchup with this. And then also some sort of metal pedals, something with more grip. But dude, this setup is where it's at. It's just so much better. The travel is so much better. It's so much closer and easier. You're not like waiting for it to engage at some point super high up. It's immediate. The moment you let off, it engages. This is exactly what I was looking for out of the clutch pedal. I knew I had to do it. It was just like further down on the to-do list. I don't know why I waited. It's so good. I mean, it should be the first thing you do. It just makes such a big impact the way that the car drives. So I'm definitely going to order another one for the 1 Series. I would love to feel how this would feel in the 135 with the DKM twin disc clutch, because that is it's a little bit heavier of a clutch versus the OEM clutch. And in addition to that, it just has a super far travel. So I think that with that setup, it's going to be perfect with the UCP. Next week, I'm going to be throwing in my new clutch. I just went with an OEM clutch and OEM flywheel for this car. I realized that there really aren't a lot of good options for the E9X M3 manual cars, and I definitely don't want to go down that road of going with like an over-spec'd clutch, because there's nothing more annoying than driving a car that has a super heavy clutch. Like, it's just not fun to drive. It gets annoying after a while, and you don't need that in an E92 M3. Like, you're not really making all that torque and all that power. You just want something that feels good, that engages at the right point. Dude, this pedal is where it's at. You guys have got to go. You've got to go with this pedal, man. It's insane. And you guys will just have to kind of mess with yours and see what you like the best. Like I said, some people like just retaining that smaller spring. Some people like retaining both. Some people like having the bigger one. Some people like having none at all. I happen to fall into that category where I just don't like having the spring in there at all. Like, there's just really no point, in my opinion, and even having the spring in there. So you just kind of have to mess with that. But the good part is, you know, if you ever want to make the car feel like factory again, it's pretty easy because you have adjustment points. Really what it comes down to is this clutch pedal is just going to be more durable, and it's going to last longer than a plastic clutch pedal. All of the pivot points are now metal. All of the hardware is metal. So there's just going to be a durability factor there that you're not going to get out of the plastic, which is going to wear over time. So my recommendations, you guys, if you are interested in doing this, highly recommend it. It's only a few $100s, and I just feel like for the amount of money that you spend, it's completely worth it because it totally changes the way that the car drives. It just makes it, in my opinion, easier to drive. You're not like waiting for that clutch to come out. It just engages right away. Like, the moment that I release the clutch, it just goes. It's so much better. This car, once I do the new clutch and the SSK, it's gonna be phenomenal. I can already tell. But this was a really big step in the right direction. Install, not the most fun. It's tedious. You're in a weird position. You're on your back, like corked over, trying to get tools in there. It's not hard, it's just tedious. But ultimately, I feel like the final product is 100% worth it. The overall driving and your clutch foot and the way that the pedal traveled, it's just so much better. All of it is just so much better. Definitely how this car should have came from factory, but probably would have been a little bit overly aggressive for some people. Like I said before, if you are a new driver, if you are a new manual driver, I wouldn't quite go this aggressive with the clutch stop and no spring. You can also remove some of the discs out of the clutch stop so it's not as aggressive and you have a little bit more play. I just prefer having no play. It just feels better, and I want the car to engage right away. You can also shift and release faster. Like, it's just way better. It's way more direct, way quicker, way more responsive. Yeah, it feels good. This car desperately needs a clutch though, so that's next. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll have the UCP link down below. A huge shout out to those guys for sending it out, man. This thing is phenomenal. I'm gonna have to order another one for the 1 Series. So make sure you guys cop some merch if you're interested. Appreciate you guys. See you in the next one. Peace.